So I'd like to introduce Brian Simpson at BCinney on Twitter. He is the director, newly crowned director of social media here at the Roger Smith Hotel. He's been doing it for a long time, but it's now official. And Damien Bazile, who is a strategic marketer, social media, I don't want to say guru.
Guru, maven, expert.
Yeah.
Out there.
Cowboy Maverick.
But has a strong interest in location-based applications, and has been doing a lot of research on that and utilizing that in his own events. He also has a monthly networking event called Digital Somethings, which brings together a group of people here in the tri-state area that are across all fields and on the digital plane and spectrum. So I think what we're going to do is start off with Brian telling us a little bit about what social hospitality is.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. This is really cool. Great event. Essentially, about a year ago, I started here at the hotel. I've been 31 years in food and beverage. I'd moved down from Boston to help reopen the plaza when that happened. And shortly after it opened, I was diagnosed with 13 tumors on my spine. So I went through almost 7 months of hardcore chemo, like 3 days a week kind of thing, 6 hours a day. And didn't want to see any friends, didn't want any visitors, didn't look myself, didn't feel myself. But started using the tools of Twitter and started a blog and started really kind of getting into the social scene and realized that it was a real, true community. It wasn't just a bunch of people on a chat room. It was real people on the other end trying to connect with other real people to do real things. The big aha moment was probably in July in 2008, lying on my bathroom floor with my BlackBerry, tweeting out that I was walking through Central Park and I was near the Alice in Wonderland statue. Just figured, this seems real, this sounds fun. And someone responded back that they said they weren't that far from there and they wanted to come meet me. And I realized, wow, people actually are listening and really wanting to connect. And that's when I realized when I got back to work, I wanted to do less of food and beverage and being on the floor and running restaurants and food outlets and hotels, and more about building up this community and using these social tools for hospitality. I was hired at the Roger Smith Hotel, and then the same afternoon, the Plaza called me back and said, listen, we did make a spot for you, because they had to give it up while I was going through my treatment. And so I weighed the decision and nicely declined Roger Smith, went back to the Plaza for 10 days, and called from my desk, called back here, asked if the position was still available, and they said yes. And it was a food and beverage position, but they said how they wanted to start getting into social media, and that would be sort of a component of my job. So when they said they'd still have me back, I turned to my boss and said I'd never done this before, and I said, I'm giving you my 3-hour notice, and I started here the next morning. And that was, I think, just over a year ago. So Adam, who was already here, the hotel is probably about 4 years deep in video archiving. They had a blog called Roger Smith News for years before I got here. Mr. Knowles, the owner, who's the artist of all the artwork and all the bronze and stuff that you see downstairs, he's a sculptor, he's an artist by trade, was really interested in putting all of these stories. He's a story guy. So for the last 4 years now, they've been archiving videos, but they never had any distribution. It was just sitting there. It was just curating. So part of bringing me in with the little bit of the base I built up through Twitter and these communities was to start to do an outreach plan and to build this community around the stories and the people of the Roger Smith Hotel. So I started here. Adam moved into a full-time position as far as doing social media, and truly what he does is it goes beyond social media. He does all of our online strategy from our corporate website too, where all the bookings and everything go, and let me focus on the social side of it. We started a Flickr page, we started a new blog, which is Roger Smith Life, where we don't just archive stuff. We put stories about New York, stories about people. We'll do a story about this event. We love to bring everybody in that's going on with the community here and do stories about it. And then the Twitter account and the YouTube page. And the key thing we started doing was stuff like this. I think in January of 2009, we had a social media breakfast here, which brought in about 110 people. And instantly from that, that was truly a catalyst to, I think Ripple 6, is that who Chris works for, Chris Keefe at Ripple 6? Or used to. At the time, they were a sponsor of that first event. So the connection with him was great. Other people, it spawned other small events. And Chris Brogan will tell the story. I've seen it in a couple of his keynotes where he was coming down here for an event or for a visit, and he reached out to Chris and said, hey, where should I stay in New York? Chris mentioned our hotel. The next person who responded back to Chris Brogan was Brett Petersol from Mashable. He said, oh, you got to check out Roger Smith Hotel. And then literally the third person to reach out to Chris was us. And he stayed here, paid. We didn't comp him anything. He did a video of his room saying how neat it was and going into all the little corners of it. Put that up on his post, and all of a sudden that created a whole new community of people. So we started to just channel all these different avenues of reaching out to people, and we never ever tried to sell anything. We just tried to connect with people. People like Damien started coming in regularly. Christina, we started with brunches. Like, okay, come on in for a brunch. We'll buy Bloody Marys for you if you're on Twitter, and you tweet about us. So that started there, and the whole bacon phenomenon took off during Jeff Pulver's 140 conference. It was, we looked for some crazy thing at the conference in June. Like, how can we lure people back? We just started spreading the word on Twitter and personally saying, if you come back to the hotel after the event and take a picture of either your drink or the food you're eating, we'll send out a free side of bacon. Because, the hashtag bacon was starting to become pretty rampant on Twitter at the time. So it just took off. And now people talk about our bacon. So it's just these little connections that we tried to make. Again, never trying to sell anything. Probably about 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting, Adam and I, with Mr. Knowles, the owner, where we said, we wanted to streamline things a little bit more. We wanted our blog posts to be a little bit more business-oriented, maybe more about the rooms and stuff like that. And he slammed his fist down on the table and said, if you guys do that, you're the two wrong guys for this job. He's like, what you've done so far is just create the community. And he's like, and we asked him, we're like, well, what is our job? What's our priority? What do you want us to do? He's like, listen, I want you to get people, stories, and then the bottom line is last. So we're fortunate in that aspect that we're not being forced by numbers. But here's the thing is, when big hotels, we just taught a class at NYU to a bunch of MBA students and a couple had just done internships at the Mandarin and the Ritz. And they said, this will never work for these big chains. It'll never work. It's got to be revenue driven. There's got to be ROI to it. It's like, no, that's why you've got a bunch of people sitting at sales desks. It's separate from that. Although it ties in customer service, sales, all of that, it's a different way of reaching out to people. Yes, we do get room sales from it, and we do a monthly report of how many rooms we get. We track the events that are brought in strictly through Twitter or social media contacts. Tweet ups in the bar, we try to estimate the dollars from that. But our goal, our objective is not to get money. I mean, at the end of the day, we need to produce something, but it's the connections, it's the community, and we've seen the power of that. It's Adam and I expressing what we've got as what am I trying to say, as a product. And one of our products is empty spaces. So, Jeff Pulver on Tuesday says, hey guys, I want to do a lunch on Thursday. Is that great? We're like, yeah, sure, let's do a lunch. So we quickly do an Eventbrite page, we throw it out there, Jeff tweets it out, retweet it out, and all of a sudden we've got 40 people upstairs on Thursday for a lunch, and a lot of faces we'd never seen. And the key is a lot of them hadn't met each other, so we become a place of connection. You've got someone like Damien who's like a super connector of people. Well, we have a place for that to happen, and that gets remembered. So really our goals have been just trying to build a community, and through that community, like this event, people have come here, hopefully the experience has been good, hopefully there's some stuff that we can learn, and I hope, Christina and her team tell us at the end where the misses were, so hopefully we can fix the misses. But truly what it creates is a place for people to connect, and that creates a story in itself. The more we can reach out to people and the more we can show people that we're truly here to support whatever their business might be, whether it's to have a book signing, whether it's to have a conference like this, whether it's to have a lunch or just something casual downstairs, we're flexible. We're not like the W, we're not like these other chains, which are great. I mean, when I travel, I'd like to stay in some of these places, but we're unique. We're not like them, and that's sort of the draw, is building that story. And the more people that come here and have that experience, they're the ones that talk about us. We don't talk about ourselves. It's one of the first times I've never really shown the slideshow, but whenever Adam and I talk, we've spoken at 140. Adam was just at Enterprise 2.0 in Amsterdam, and it was kind of like the old Sesame Street picture of which one of these things doesn't belong. It showed the banner for the conference, and it was Lego, it was SAP, it was Cisco, it was Google, it was Domino's, it was all these major brands. It was Google, it was Domino's, it was all these